Let's begin with a structural overview. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine the 2026 NBA Draft as both an event and a system. I am Alexei, and with me is Priyanka. Together we shall treat the draft not as gossip, but as a set of rules, incentives, and probabilities that, when properly understood, explain quite a lot about how teams and players behave.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I guess we can start by thinking about the basics. What is the draft doing, and how does 2026 fit into the larger picture?
To frame our discussion, the NBA Draft is the annual mechanism by which teams select eligible players to join the league. In 2026, it was the 80th edition, conducted across 2 rounds over 2 days. The first round occurred on June 23rd, and the second round on June 24th. It is crucial to understand that first and second rounds are governed by distinct rookie scale and contract contexts, which influences how teams time trades and manage boards across the 2 nights. Definitions. First, the lottery. Prior to reform scheduled for 2027, the lottery used 1,001 possible combinations to determine the top of the draft among non-playoff teams. In 2026, that familiar system was used for the last time. Second, the green room. Selected prospects are invited by the NBA to sit near the stage with family and agents. Invitations in 2026 were issued in 3 waves: June 9, June 15, and June 17, culminating in 24 total invitees. This staged approach both reflects evolving intel and produces reliable television, if you will.
And the pre-draft pipeline pieces. Like, what is the G League Elite Camp and the Combine, in simpler terms?
The G League Elite Camp is a pre-combine evaluation held May 8-10 in 2026. Strong performers can earn invitations to the main combine. The NBA Draft Combine itself, May 10-17 in Chicago, supplies measurements, athletic testing, scrimmages, interviews, and medicals. It is the canonical data set, so to speak, that informs interviews, medical reviews, and draft night strategy. Early entry candidates, players who have not exhausted eligibility, must declare in writing at least 60 days before the draft. For 2026, that deadline was April 24th. International players are defined by the CBA. An international is automatically eligible at age 22 during the calendar year, or by having signed and played under a professional contract outside the United States. For 2026, the age-based automatic cutoff was birth on or before December 31st, 2004.
And for college players, the age rule is 19 in the draft year, right? Which for 2026 means born on or before December 31st, 2007.
Correct. And under NCAA Division I rules, since 2016, players may declare, receive feedback, participate in the combine, and 1 workout per NBA team per year, and still withdraw while retaining eligibility, subject to deadlines and agent restrictions. This in practice has produced more informed choices and fewer unnecessary risks. Why does any of this matter? The draft can reset team trajectories, redistribute young talent across the league, and serve as the principal conduit from college and international ecosystems to the NBA. In 2026, the restored full 60-pick slate, absent any forfeited second-rounders, expanded opportunities in the 40 to 60 range, and subtly changed undrafted free agency dynamics. It is also a frequent site of misunderstanding. Eligibility rules are layered, and trades agreed upon on draft night are often not formally announced until later due to physicals, cap checks, and league office processing.
So yeah, moving on. The stakes are high for teams and for players deciding whether to stay in or return to school. And there is strategy in the pacing. The 2-day split shapes first-round rookie scale considerations versus second-round flexibility. Right.
Exactly. Let's proceed to the next point. A few anchor facts. The 2026 draft was the 80th edition. It returned to a full 60 picks for the first time since 2021. Washington selected A.J. Dibonsa, a small forward from BYU, first overall, a compelling signal that elite talent identification is increasingly program agnostic. The lottery itself occurred May 10th and closed the chapter on the 1001 combination format. Green room invitations were issued in 3 waves, June 9, 15, and 17, totaling 24 prospects. And we observe a notable clustering by program in the first round, including multiple Michigan frontcourt designations at picks 9, 11, and 12. Such clusters tend to reinforce a program's reputation with evaluators.
I'm curious about the lottery odds snapshot. The Wizards were 17 to 65, and they shared 14.0% odds for the top pick with 2 other teams, right? That equalized top 3 structure was meant to curb tanking.
Yes. On May 10, the input showed Washington, Indiana, and Brooklyn each at 14% for the first pick. Utah and Sacramento followed at 11.5%. Thereafter, the probabilities tapered. Memphis at 9, New Orleans 6.8, Dallas 6.7, and so on down to Charlotte at 0.5. Mathematically, equalizing the top trio distributes risk and reduces the marginal benefit of finishing with the very worst record, though variance remains a stubborn companion in any lottery. Historically, 2 institutional changes shaped 2026 in particular. First, the 2016 NCAA reforms allowed declaration without automatic loss of eligibility, limited team tryouts, and withdrawal up to 10 days after the combine. This created a rational feedback loop for students. Second, the 2023 CBA codified modern eligibility and procedural timelines, age thresholds, early entry, and withdrawals, aligning the league's framework with NCAA flexibility. In 2026, the league announced 71 early entry candidates on April 27th. 38 withdrew by May 29th, and 3 more by June 16th. This is the new normal. Many test, then return with better information, and sometimes better NIL opportunities.
Building on that, I think the next thing we should talk about is your personal angle. Why do you enjoy analyzing this in such detail?
Before we get to the complexities, a confession. I enjoy sports statistics for the same reason I enjoy chess endgames and Shostakovich: structure under pressure. The draft presents incomplete information, binding constraints, and high emotional stakes. In that crucible, we can infer how institutions actually work, not merely how they say they work.
To shift gears a bit, 3 big questions. First, how did the rule changes evolve, and what did they change about behavior? Second, what if the 2027 lottery rules had been applied in 2026? Third, where is international integration heading, practically speaking?
Let's start with the history. After 2016, NCAA Division I players gained the ability to declare, attend the combine, work out with each NBA team once per year, and still withdraw while retaining eligibility. And crucially, they can do so up to 2 times. This changed the optimization problem facing a player. Instead of a one-shot gamble, the decision became iterative, data-driven, and reversible within defined windows. The 2023 CBA provided the complementary league side, age 19 minimum by December 31st of the draft year. early entry notice 60 days before the draft, and a league withdrawal deadline, typically 10 days before the draft, at 5 p.m. Eastern. In 2026, these dual timelines ran in parallel with the NCAA's post-combine window, which, given the May 17th combine end, extended into late May.
I'm curious about agents. Can a college player hire one and still keep eligibility? How does that work in practice?
It is worth noting that under current NCAA provisions, a player may engage an agent without automatically losing eligibility, provided the agent is appropriately certified and the agreements are terminated if the player goes undrafted, alongside compliance with evaluation mechanisms such as the NBA's Undergraduate Advisory Committee. This recognizes that professional guidance can improve decision quality while preserving the option to return to school when draft interest is uncertain. Practically, this reduces adverse selection. Fewer players remain in the draft without a commensurate market for their services. We also observe transactional timing effects. Pre-draft pick trades occur to maneuver cap positions and asset timelines. During the draft, on-the-clock trades respond to how the board breaks in real time. Yet many such agreements are not legally consummated until later. Physicals, trade calls, and cap compliance checks induce a lag between the public handshake and the formal announcement.
That makes sense. And the two-day format. It seems to slow everyone down just enough to think more clearly about the second round.
Precisely. The separation gives front offices a night to reprioritize for day two. In 2026, the presence of all 60 picks meant more tangible value persisted into the 50s and even at pick 60. This affects both drafting and the subsequent undrafted market. Let's transition to another aspect. What if the 2027 lottery rules had been implemented in 2026? The salient change is that the new format will involve the eighth seed in each conference in lottery-related outcomes. While we await precise operational impacts, the conceptual takeaway is a broadened field of variability, including additional teams, however modest their probabilities, alters the incentive gradients for clubs hovering near the playoff line.
What if we thought about it like this? Would those extra teams being in the mix change late-season morale and effort? Like fewer reasons to rest healthy players for seeding games?
Arguably, yes. Mathematically, if probability mass is spread to additional entrants, the expected value of a narrow slide down the standings diminishes for bubble teams. Conversely, the expected value of competing to hold or improve seeding rises relative to targeted losses. In simpler terms, more games remain truly meaningful for more teams deeper into April. The 2026 outcome, Washington ultimately selecting A.J. DeBonsa at number 1, rested on the old distribution where the bottom three each had 14.0% odds. Had the 2027 scheme applied, Washington's baseline would likely remain high, but the distribution of long-shot leaps by others could shift. The top four order is notoriously sensitive to small probability events. From a strategic standpoint, teams on the margin would likely reduce overt tanking behaviors. More competitive late-season games follow as a corollary. It's important to understand that any single draft's counterfactual is indeterminate, but the direction of incentive change is quite clear.
Maybe it's just me, but that sounds healthier for fans too. Fewer empty April nights.
Indeed. Economists would call it a marginal increase in consumer surplus. We shall refrain from billing the league for the externality. On to our next point, international integration. The 2026 draft evidences a mature global scouting apparatus. First round and second round selections featured players from clubs such as Valencia at pick 25, Alba Berlin at pick 39, PBC Lokomotiv Kuban at pick 56, Poitiers Basket 86 at pick 57, and Southeast Melbourne Phoenix at pick 60. We also observe a first-round selection from the New Zealand Breakers at pick 21. Additionally, among early entry candidates announced April 27th were international prospects like Mohamed Amini, Sergio de la Rea, Vsevolod Ishchenko, Jack Kyle, and Karim Lopez. Taken together, this is no longer a novelty. It is the infrastructure.
I often think about the challenges. Can we say that cross-cultural adjustment, differences in playing style, and the logistics of visas and contracts might complicate transitions, even if teams are more comfortable with international resumes now?
We observe that translation across leagues is never trivial. Style of play, physicality, and role context all mediate what statistics mean. Additionally, contract buyouts and development pathway choices, NBA roster spot, two-way contract, or draft and stash, require careful calculus. The league's comfort level is high precisely because scouting, analytics, and medical review have deepened. The G League Elite Camp and Combine pipeline also extends to non-blue blood or late-blooming prospects, which broadens the evaluated pool in a manner favorable to international candidates and mid-major collegians alike.
From a different angle, what kinds of research questions are still open here?
To elaborate, we lack consensus on best practice models for cross-league statistical translation. We could study how specific developmental environments, NCAA, G League, ACB, NBL, interact with archetypes like rim protectors or off-movement shooters. We also need better evidence on cultural acclimation and its time course. And as always, we need longitudinal evaluation of second-round strategies. With 60 picks restored in 2026, how does two-way usage evolve when international stashes remain attractive alternatives?
Isn't it interesting how the green room waves mirror that uncertainty? June 9th, 15, and 17. It's like the league acknowledging late movement in consensus.
Clearly. Staggered invitations created a cohort of 24 who could reasonably expect to hear their names in the first round, consistent with evolving intel post-combine and workouts. It is both a signal and a production schedule. In conclusion, the 2026 NBA Draft offered a clean laboratory. Definitionally, it is the league's annual selection mechanism. In 2026, it spanned 2 days with the full 60 picks restored. The Wizards' selection of A.J. Dibonsa first overall illustrated how the event can reshape trajectories. The Combine, Elite Camp, and Green Room waves reflected institutional rhythms. We examined 3 questions: how modern rules changed behavior, how 2027 lottery reforms might alter incentives, and where international integration is heading.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. If you are curious about how these dynamics evolve, maybe keep an eye on the 2027 draft, especially with the lottery changes. Thank you for listening.
This then completes our present analysis. Until next time.